Okay, we're here to take a look at what a chlorination system requires on a monthly basis for maintenance as you as a homeowner. The first thing you're going to see is the orange pump on the white barrel. That's the chlorinator pump. And that chlorinator pump is the heart of the system. That's the first thing you want to take a look at right here is the chlorinator pump. Also, you'll see the barrel. The barrel is a 35-gallon barrel, and you want to try to use just the top half. So when that liquid, that solution starts to get down to around between the 15 and 20 gallon mark, that's when you want to add more solution. It will not go all the way to the bottom. The pickup is about at the 10-gallon mark. So if you go below the 10-gallon mark, you're going to run dry and the chlorinator is going to stop working. If the chlorinator stops working, everything basically is going to stop working, because the we need the chlorine in the water for everything else to work. Now, every system is a little bit different, so usually you'll find on the top of the tank, or your installer or whatever will give you a mix of how much chlorine to water you're going to put in that barrel. People that have a lot of sulfur and a lot of iron are going to use a lot more chlorine than someone that maybe only has some sulfur and no iron. So that calculation will change from system to system. Also on this pump, it has two control knobs on the back. Now the bottom one, the bigger one, is the stroke knob, and it goes from 20 to 100%, and that's how much the piston, let's call it, it's not really a piston, but let's say it's how much the piston will push in each time the pump pumps. I generally keep that high, up to around 190, because I want it to pump a lot of solution when it pumps, just to keep everything moving in the line. The smaller knob up here on the top is the speed, and it goes from 0 to 100, and it will give the pump the rhythm, whether it's pumping this fast or whether it's just pumping a little slower. I usually run that around 30%, 30 to 40. And I generally use the speed control to adjust my chlorine level in the water. Now, what do you have to do for chlorine level in the water? What you need to do is you need to test that. You're going to have a garden hose spigot somewhere that's going to come out of the top of the big tank, and you'll see how this comes down right there, and it's the first spigot before it goes through any of the filters. And you'll take a sample of water from this garden hose, and you're going to use just a regular pool test kit. Here's a sample bottle of a chlorine test kit drops to test chlorine. This particular test, you're just going to use 5 drops. You have a little vial that you put it in, and you see how yellow the water comes, and it tells you how much chlorine is in the water. Generally, you want your water coming out of that tap to be on the low end of the scale of a pool. So when you look at your scale for a pool, it's going to have a gap there for adequate for a pool. You just want to be on the lower end of that. So I've come out, I've confirmed that I have chlorine coming out of my tap there. I also can tell for sure if my pump is pumping, and I'm going to activate the pump. The pump turns on and off whenever you use water in the house, and that's done by that flow switch up there, that white box. And your chlorinator pump is the black cord plugged in there, and you'll see it's plugged in the top left-hand receptacle. That's the only one that it can go into. It has to go into that top left-hand receptacle. And the reason that is that top left-hand one only turns on power when water is moving in the house. The other 3 receptacles are hot all the time. Now, depending on your system, you may only have 2 receptacles up there, and one's hot all the time, and one is a switch or you might have 4, and maybe the bottom right-hand corner one. But you can determine which one is on the switch by plugging into it, and the ones that are hot all the time, make sure you're not flowing any water in the house. 3 of them should be hot all the time, and 1 of them won't be, and only be hot when you use water. So I'm going to turn on the garden spigot over here on the side, and you will see the chlorinator pump will kick on. You can hear it. You also can see that black line jumping. See the movement in that black line? That confirms to me that that pump is pumping solution. There are times when that pump can be pumping, making the noise, but the black line won't be moving. And what that tells me is you have a problem. Either your pump has lost prime, and you need to prime your pump, or possibly the injector down here has got a plug in it. Does happen from time to time, not very often, but it does. So now I'm going to show you how to prime your pump. If the pump has lost its prime, and the reason it would lose its prime is if you let your barrel go down too low. If you let that get all the way to the bottom and that pump starts sucking in air, you're going to lose prime. You're going to fill your barrel back up again, and you're not going to get any solution out. So you're going to have to prime that pump. So I'm going to turn the water back on again. And now to prime this pump, you see you got a 3-way valve right here and a knob. I'm going to turn that knob, and you'll see chlorine will start squirting out of that side. Now, next thing, do not come out here and do any of this in your good clothes, because if you get any of this chlorine on you, you are going to ruin your pants, your shirt, your dress, your whatever you're wearing. If it gets chlorine on you, you're going to stain it. So just open this up, and you see that it's pumping solution out. Now if you'd lost its prime, you'll hear air come out of there and a little bit of gurgling. And then as soon as you get a good pump, a good stream like that, and you've primed the pump, you can shut the knob off, and now the system's right back and is working. You've primed that pump. Now there's other manufacturers of pumps out there, but it doesn't matter. Every pump out there has its own little problems per se, and things that need to be maintained on it on a regular basis. This pump right here I've used for many, many years, and usually for the most part I've been pretty happy with it. It's worked the best for me for over 20 years. So now we've checked the chlorinator. Now we're going to move on. When this chlorine is injected into the water, a lot of the garbage will oxidize and settle into this big tank. And the water goes into the bottom of the tank and comes out at the top. So as that stuff settles in the bottom of the tank, depending on how bad your water is, every month, every 2 months, maybe once every 6 months, you're going to have to flush the bottom of this tank out to flush the sediment out. This particular system, you see the valve right there. And you just open it up, and water's going to come out of there at a high rate. It's going to have some force behind it, so don't stand right in front of it. And just flush that out for 15-20 seconds. Then close it off. If the water was real dirty, iron looking or muddy or whatever, you're going to do it again. You're going to do it a couple times. But you're only going to do it for about 15 seconds at a time. Because if you do it any faster than that, your well's not going to be able to keep up, and you may get an air bubble in your tank. So just do it for about 15 seconds, shut it off, let your pump build back up again, and then do it again. You're never going to probably get that thing clear as city water. You just want to get the most of the sediment out of the bottom of the tank. Do not do that when somebody is doing laundry in the house, because Maybe either when you're getting ready to go shopping or something, or you're going to go out and leave the house, come out here, flush it, and then you can leave and it'll set for a couple hours. Then the water is going to come out of the top of the tank. The first little brass valve there is a vacuum breaker. That is to let air in, just in case for some reason water was coming out so fast that it was pulling a vacuum on that tank, and it will allow air in so that the tank will not implode and get sucked down. Also, if your well's foot valve or something malfunctions and the water starts running backwards down your well shaft, that would put a lot of siphon on that tank, and it can collapse that tank. So that's a vacuum breaker to let air in. It's like taking your finger off the top of a straw. Then you have your flow switch, which we already talked about. Comes down, it goes into your first filter. Now these covers just come straight up and off. Both of these systems are very similar. And what you need to do here is check the time of day. Is the system set to the correct time of day? Well, right now it is 12 o'clock. You can see in the bottom it says 12p. If you need to adjust the time, it tells you how to do that in that paragraph you see right there on the bottom left, which says to set the time of day, push in the red button, turn large gear. So you're going to push in this red button, and you're going to turn the gear on the top. You see when you push that button in, it disengages these teeth right here. You don't need to turn this knob. You just turn the teeth here. This knob here tells you when the system's going to regenerate. This particular system is going to regenerate every other day. And that's flushing your carbon tank. Water then comes out of your carbon tank. Your carbon tank removes all the chlorine before it goes into the house. So now you've chlorinated the water, killed everything in the water, and then removed all the chlorine. Then the water comes over here to the softener. The softener removes all the hardness, calcium, lime, manganese, any leftover iron that may have, a little bit of iron that snuck through your chlorination system. And this one's the same thing. Set the time of day. That shows you the time of day. And this sets the time of day. Push in the red button, it disengages the teeth and turn the gear. The only thing is this system works off of gallons, so it has a meter wheel on it. And as you use water, this dial will turn down to 0. And when it gets to 0, it will regenerate that night. It only regenerates as much as it needs to. So if you go on vacation or something and nobody's at the house, it won't regenerate at all. It'll sit here for months and months and never regenerate. If you come home and you bring some family members or friends and you now usually you have 4 people in the house, but now you have 6 people in the house, it'll regenerate more often if it needs to. It will save you in salt. Then the last thing is the salt itself. You've got a barrel, has salt in it, and basically whenever you can see water, like you can just start to see water come to the top of that salt, you need to add salt. I don't usually fill my salt barrel more than half, between half and 3/4 at the most, because if you fill that up completely, you're going to have over 250 pounds of salt in that barrel, and it's easier to poke a hole in the bottom of it. If an acorn or something gets underneath that barrel and has all that weight on it, sometimes it'll push a hole in the bottom of that barrel. So half full is plenty. You're only going to use about 9 pounds of salt every time it regenerates. And it's going to regenerate every 4 to 5 days, depending on how many people are in the house. So, you know, you'll have enough in there, even if it's just a couple inches in there. You'll see a couple tubes over here on the side, a couple PVC pipes down in the ground. And what they use, they go down in the ground into a rock bed. And that's where the systems, when they regenerate. When they regenerate, they flush water out. They're going to flush about 50 gallons of water total over a 2-hour period of time. And that water is drained down there in that rock bed. Now, these units are 1.5 cubic feet each. They are pretty good sized units. So they will use that 50 gallons of water. Other units may use less water, but they're smaller units, and they will require more regeneration more often. Like these might regenerate once every 4 days at 50 gallons. Other smaller systems may only use 25 gallons of water to regenerate, but they'll regenerate every 2 days. They'll regenerate twice as much. I think that should take care of your monthly maintenance. You do not want to try to stretch a monthly maintenance out to every 2 months by making your chlorine stronger and turning your speed down slower so that you're only coming out here once a month or whatever. That's not a good thing to do. The stronger you make your chlorine, the more chances you are having problems, service problems with your equipment. And once a month, it's only going to take you, I don't know, it took me 15, 16 minutes to do this video. It's going to take you 10 minutes a month to maintain this system. Enjoy your great water.